Welcome back to CIT 157 Module 5_3. In this module, you will do a lot of hands-on exercise for Module 5. Now, let's talk about IP address. What is IP address? What is www.miamio.edu for? To find out these, follow the rest of Activity 1. To find out practical meaning of IP and URL, let's start with ping. Ping stands for Packet Internet Groper, which is a tool within the ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol, used to test that a device on the network is reachable. To use ping command, go to Start All Programs Accessories command prompt. Or type CMD in search box to open command prompt. Then type ping www.miamio.edu, press enter key. If a web server is unreachable, you will get request timed out message. Some web servers may not reply intentionally for security purpose. If you type IP address in the address bar instead of URL, you will get the same result. However, it is hard for us to remember numbers. So we use URL. There are some computers who translate URL to IP address in Internet. That is DNS, Domain Name Service, server. DNS is Domain Name Service. DNS server maps IP address and domain name. Each top-level DNS server like .com, .org, .edu, etc. should have all registered domain names for .com, .org, .edu, etc. and IP address mapping table so that they can provide IP address when there is a request. This is how DNS works. If you type www.miamio.edu in a web browser, your computer will ask a closer DNS server for the IP address of www.miamio.edu. The DNS server will give your computer requested IP address. Then your computer use the IP address to send HTTP request to the Miami web server. If the DNS server does not have the information, then it will ask higher DNS server. The highest DNS servers are top-level DNS servers like .com for commercial web pages, .edu for education web pages, .org for organizations, .gov for governments, .mil for military, etc. Example, these are many .com top-level DNS servers in the US. They update each other and keep the most current update for all .com commercial web pages. You can use nslookup command to see DNS server information. In LAN environment, computers actually use physical address to communicate. In the Internet we use IP address to go to the destination network. When the signal, packet, comes inside the destination LAN, it uses physical address of the destination IP address computer to communicate. So there is a mapping table for IP address and physical address. ARP, Address Resolution Protocol, provides all connected nodes physical and IP address. This is explanation of physical address. Each hardware must have unique number in the world. Physical address is embedded in a network interface card hardware. Physical address is also called as MAC, Media Access Control, address. Network devices uses physical address to forward packets. Computers have information of surrounding computers' IP address and physical address to communicate. These are types of addresses. URL is for application layer address. IP address is for network layer address. MAC address is for data link layer address. ARP, Address Resolution Protocol, will show all IP and MAC address mapping around your computer. To find out your computer IP address and other information, you use IP protocol configuration. Follow Activity 4 to get your computer information. Find out their information from your computer by using IP protocol configuration/all. This is an example. Your web browser send HTTP request to a web server and the web server will send HTTP response including request web page. You can see HTTP request and response through HTTP viewer. Follow Activity 5 to see them. When you see a web page from your web browser, your computer sends HTTP request to a web server. Then the web server will send back HTTP response, which includes HTML web pages. This is an example of HTTP request and HTTP response. Visit given address and see the result. This is an example of HTTP request and response from given web page. In this activity, you will capture packets on our network using Wireshark. Wireshark is very famous tools for IT workers. There are a lot of complicated settings. However, this activity is an introductory activity for you. Follow activity 6. Wireshark is one of the world's foremost network protocol analyzers, and is the de facto standard that most professional and education institutions use today. It is used for network troubleshooting, network analysis, software and communications protocol development, and general education about how networks work. Follow steps here. This is an example of the result. Read this slide how to analyze the result. There are a lot more things on Wireshark. However, we will stop at this moment. In this activity, I will remind you that there are some special IP address you should know related to practical point of view. Follow activity 7. These are private IP addresses reserved for private networks. The 127.0.0.0 Class A subnet is used for loopback addresses. 127.0.0.1 is used to test the local network interface device's functionality. All network interface devices should respond to this address from the command line of the local host. If there is no response on pinging 127.0.0.1, the NIC would be bad. Automatic private IP address. DHCP server will assign IP addresses to computers automatically. If there is no IP address assigned, maybe no DHCP server, then MS Windows may assign a PIPA, automatic private IP addressing. It means there is a trouble. Generally, server computer's IP address is assigned manually by IT administrator, not by DHCP server. For troubleshooting. 1. Check physical layer, cable connection, power on, etc. 2. Ping other computers to see if network is alive. 3. Ping loopback IP 127.0.0.1 to check NIC card. 4. Check IP address if it is automatic private IP addressing, a PIPA, that starts with 169.254. 5. Check DHCP server. In activity 8, I listed 3 types of TP, twisted pair, cables. UTP is major cable for LAN. However, by arranging each line in different order, you can make straight-through cable, crossover cable, and rollover cable. Follow activity 8. Straight-through refers to cables that have the pin assignments on each end of the cable. In other words, pin 1 connector A goes to pin 1 on connector B, pin 2 to pin 2, etc. Straight-through wired cables are most commonly used to connect a host to client. When we talk about CAT5E patch cables, the straight-through wired CAT5E patch cable is used to connect computers, printers, and other network client devices to the router switch or hub, the host device in this instance. Straight-through wired cables usage. Crossover wired cables, commonly called crossover cables, are very much like straight-through cables with the exception that TX and RX lines are crossed. Crossover cables are most commonly used to connect two hosts directly. Examples would be connecting a computer directly to another computer, connecting a switch directly to another switch, or connecting a router to a router. Note, while in the past when connecting two host devices directly a crossover cable was required. Nowadays most devices have auto-sensing technology that detects the cable and device and crosses pairs when needed. Crossover wired cables usage. Rollover wired cables, most commonly called rollover cables, have opposite pin assignments on each end of the cable, or in other words it is rolled over. Pin 1 of connector A would be connected to pin 8 of connector B, pin 2 of connector A would be connected to pin 7 of connector B, and so on. Rollover cables, sometimes referred to as Yoast cables, are most commonly used to connect to a device's console port to make programming changes to the device. Unlike crossover and straight wired cables, rollover cables are not intended to carry data but instead create an interface with the device. Rollover wired cables usage. Class Activity 5-3 Get the required information and put them on MS Word and save it as module_5_3 class activity. Then attach it and submit in Class Activity 5-3. This is the end of Module 5_3. In this module, you have practiced several commands like ping, IP protocol configuration, ANS lookup, and ARP. These are very useful and practical commands to diagnose troubles. You have learned that there were private IP addresses, loopback IP address, and automatic private IP address. You also have used Wireshark application and have seen HTTP request and response. I will see you in next lecture.